Hi everybody, Matt here, and today we're going to be talking about the two Beatles albums that every vinyl collector should have in their collection. Now when it comes to vinyl, most people when they start collecting or they start getting into it in general want the Beatles in some way. And most Beatles fans are vinyl collectors and most vinyl collectors are Beatles fans, so they really just get every single album. But for those of you that have not ever listened to a Beatles album, which I find really odd, or if you're just getting into their music and you're a little overwhelmed by all the releases and reissues and remasters and things of that nature, this is a good place for you to start. As I said before, this is a great introduction to the essential tracks from the Beatles, the stuff that everybody knows, and the stuff that you just kind of want to have in your collection. This is also good for long-time Beatles fans because anybody that collects vinyl and listens to vinyl knows that even though it is cool, getting up and changing the record every 5 seconds is kind of a bit of a pain in the butt, especially when you have a catalog like the Beatles that is stretched out over so many different albums and compilations. These are two good collections because it compiles everything together in a really great mix. What's really good about these albums as well is that they're very easily found in used record shops. I've seen them pretty much every time I look in a used Beatles section, and then they also did a reissue of these, so you can get them new if you want that as well. These albums came out not only because of fan demand, but also because there was a bootleg set that was going around in the year 1972. The set was called Alpha Omega. If you ever find it, I've come across it a couple times in some record shops and antique stores. It is a good compilation. It actually includes some of the Beatles solo tracks on there as well, but it is a bootleg album. It's not an official release by EMI or Apple, and was pretty much only available in a very short amount of time. So it is kind of a rare collector's item for Beatles nuts like myself. And it was because of that EMI, the company that produces all the Beatles work, decided, hey, we better put out a compilation because these guys are eating up our ad revenue and things like that. It was crazy too because the album Alpha Omega was shown on TV, it was sold in stores. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy to think that they were doing that at the time. So what EMI did was they put together their own compilations and they released them at the same time. This first one, 1962 to 1966, also known as the Red Album. They then released the Blue Album, 1967 to 1970. Now these albums only contain original works by the Beatles. There are no covers on here, so if you're looking for their early stuff where they covered Money, Boys, Twist and Shout, you will not find them on these particular albums. So that's something to keep in mind. Speaking of covers, I just want to point this out real quick. These covers are really fantastic. I think that this is probably one of my favorite pictures of the Beatles. Now, if you look at the original one, I'm just going to flip over this one here, you'll notice that this is Please Please Me. And then on the other side, you have this photo where they're in the same position and obviously a little bit more older and a little bit more well-traveled. This picture has an interesting story because this was the original image that was going to be used for the album Get Back, which later became known as Let It Be. So it's a really nice bookend that you have them when they first got started and then them at the sweet, sweet end. And it's a really great photo. On the inner sleeve, you also have photos from the Mad Day Out, which is a very famous photo session that they did. Everybody has an era of the Beatles that they love, and this particular set contains something for everybody. And if you hear something you like on here, seek it out. Those albums are out there, go find them. The last thing I want to talk about today is the Beatles album 1. And the reason I want to bring up 1 is because it was the first Beatles album that I ever owned. I got it on CD when it came out back in, I believe it was 1999, 2000, and it was my introduction to their work. Now, if you don't know about 1 is all of the #1 singles that the Beatles released, all in one CD, disc, file, whatever you want to call it. And when they went back and they did the reissue of all the Beatles work on vinyl, that was one of the ones that came out. That's another good album to get started with. But if you are a vinyl collector and you want to start your Beatles vinyl collection, this is a good place to start. 1962 to 1966, 1967 to 1970, or as they're more commonly known, the Blue and the Red albums. That's all for today. I'll see you guys next time.